Hey, welcome back. Today, let's learn about REST APIs and a fake REST API that you can use to learn about APIs. So we said that APIs are application programming interfaces. So that means that's sort of a gateway, an interface for your program to request data from another server on the internet. And this other server is not like a typical web server that returns a web page that's supposed to be viewed by a human viewer in a web browser. An API is something that sends just pure data so that another application on your side, on your program, can access it, can request it, and can do something with it, display it by itself, or sort of process that data somehow. So that's what an API, an application programming interface, is for. And one kind of methodology or paradigm that has been used for more than a decade now is the REST API structure. And we're going to talk about this today. I'm going to use a fake API that you can access and use just as it would be a real API. And it's called JSONPlaceholder. URL is JSONPlaceholder.typicode.com. But if you just Google JSONPlaceholder, you will find it. And it's a free fake API for testing and prototyping. And it's perfect to understand what a JSON or a REST API is about. JSON is actually the format that the text that is returned by the API is going to be formatted in. And if you take a look at it, and if you click on guide there on the website describing this JSON placeholder fake API, you will soon see what it's all about. So basically, a REST API relies on different HTTP methods. HTTP is the protocol that we use to access resources from a web server. Usually, you know this as the stuff in the address bar in your web browser. But here we are using it from your program to send an HTTP request to that web server that returns not the web page, but an API, the data that you're requesting there. And HTTP defines different methods that you can use. Usually the method that's being used is GET. So that's something that when you type in your URL in a web browser, the web browser is using this GET method underneath to request the website. And this is the first method that we are going to describe when we're talking about a REST API, because a REST API has a URL, just like any web page or any resource on the internet. You need this URL. And then when you send a GET request to the URL, then it returns a list of resources. If, for example, you take a look at this JSON placeholder API here, this fake API, it always has the URL JSONPlaceholder.typicode.com. And if you add /post to it, it will return a list of blog posts, each of them with an ID and a title and so on. And you can actually test this by yourself in your web browser, sort of mimicking a program and requesting this API directly from your web browser, which is obviously not what you would be doing as a human, but we are sort of simulating there our program. So if you type into your address bar JSONPlaceholder.typicode.com/posts, you will see a list of posts, of blog posts. These are fake posts, so this is all fake data. It's just to learn and to prototype and to test. But you see the format that this sort of a typical REST API answers, right? It's a list, it's actually an array, starting with the square brackets of dictionaries of something that's lines that sort of define the idea and the title and the other attributes that a blog post is being made of. If you add after that /posts, you add a /1, you get a single resource. Every post there in the list has an ID. And if you add the ID with /ID, /1, /2, /something to the post URL, you get a single resource instead of a list of resources there. Okay, so these are examples of how you access that API there, or any API. If you access a resource like the posts resource without anything else in the URL, you get back the list of that resource, a list of entries that are stored for that API. In our case, a list of posts. If you then add a slash and a specific ID, you get back a specific ID, just a single post there with the ID, the title, the body, and the user ID of the person who supposedly entered that post there. So that's the get method. You can also create new methods or create new resources, create a new post in that regard by using the post method. So we're talking about blog posts there, and we have seen the get method to request resources, to get posts from a list of posts either or a single specific post. And you can use the HTTP post method to create something new, to send to the web API, to the REST API, telling it, I want to create a new post, and you give it the title and the body and the user ID. So that's that HTTP post method that creates something new on that web server that's hosting that API there. But there are different, even more HTTP methods there. You can update something that's already existing, update a blog post by using the put method. Put is another of these HTTP methods that are normally not used when you're just browsing the web there. We said that if you just enter a URL, then the get method is used from your web browser. If you are entering something, filling out a form on a web page and then clicking submit, most of the times the method that's being used, the HTTP method, is actually post. So that's create something, that sends something from the client to the server. And in our case, with the API, with the REST API, we are creating a new blog post. We are using the post method to send that data to the API. When we want to update an existing blog post, we use the put method or the patch method. These are two different methods. The put method sort of takes the whole new or the whole to be updated attributes of the complete post. So you still send the ID, the title, and the body, and the user ID. When you're using patch, you just send the single or a couple of attributes that should be changed, and everything else is unchanged. And finally, you can delete a blog post by sending the delete method. You need the post/1 or whatever the ID is as a URL. And then you use the method delete to tell the API, well, I want to delete this resource, this post with the ID 1 there. And there are some more ways to sort of request stuff from the API. You can filter based on user IDs. You've got some examples there. You can list resources that are sort of nested, so data that's nested within another data. In our case here, we can list the comments for a specific post by using a get method and post/post_ID/comments there. And even more possibilities there in the fake API. You don't just have posts there. You've got photo albums and users and to-dos and whatever. So JSONPlaceholder.typicode.com/guide, where you find all these instructions and basically what I've just described to you. It's a great way to learn about REST APIs, ways to offer information to other clients on the internet if you're sort of the one providing that data, or usually the case is that you're using data from somewhere else, like a weather data API or currency converter, something that I've used in the past. So basically you are accessing data on the internet from your program, not as a human, obviously, but as a program. So you need the data to be made available in a specific format. And that's what these REST APIs are going to give you.